Look at these beautiful F-104 jets. They protect the country and are always on alert, just like at this time when someone in the control room sees a blip that he can't recognize. Shout out to the US Air Force taking him seriously and investigating, especially since this base is in Nebraska and no one knows how this blip just appeared out of nowhere. Now, some experts have claimed that the jets taking off aren't the same as the ones you saw earlier since they aren't carrying missiles. But there is also no evidence that they are supposed to be the same aircraft either. What the heck is that? This is what the Enterprise looks like when it is flying through space during the daytime. That's what it is. Welcome back to the Star Trek Critic, where the episodes are graded like school projects and ripped apart. Today's episode is Tomorrow is Yesterday. The Enterprise is thrown back in time, and they screw up the timeline and now have to spend the entire episode trying to unscrew it. Kirk calls the anomaly a black star, which is actually a better description than a black hole, since it really isn't a hole and we all know that. The captain's log explains how they got into this situation since we joined them after the fact. I will have to take 1 point here though, since they entered the atmosphere, they really should be a fireball going through space, similar to how the ships on Independence Day looked in the movie. Minus 1 more point. The monitors are out, but covering them with wrinkled paper is a really bad special effect. The Enterprise is designed to operate outside of a planet's atmosphere, and the way the show starts, most everyone was knocked unconscious from the slingshot effect, which means no one was at the controls. This explanation is incredibly vague, but it seems Mr. Scott wasn't unconscious, and really is a miracle worker this time, or else they would have plunged into the Earth and become a giant crater. Captain Kirk remembers who he is. I will have to take 1 point for this globe of the Earth. Not only is it just a basic globe, they are currently in a much lower orbit. Lieutenant Uhura makes the discovery we aren't in Kansas anymore. The Vulcan High Command says time travel isn't possible, but Spock disagrees. Captain Kirk practices his facial expressions. For being such an important discovery, the time travel slingshot explanation gets about 2 seconds of airtime. So the jet coming after them is a real threat. The Enterprise is damaged and limping back into space. Plus, there is a chance that jet has nuclear weapons. And the controller says there are 2 flights coming up. Not just 2 jets, but 2 flights of jets. So they're in a lot of trouble right now. Kirk is concerned the jet will fire, so says to lock onto it with a tractor beam. It would be a better idea if they just fire at any weapons coming to them, unless their weapons are offline, but that isn't mentioned, so minus 1 point. Spock's prediction comes true, and the pilot gets beamed up. Oddly, he is sitting in his jet, but arrives on the transporter pad standing up, so minus 1 more point. Are they speaking English, or is it just the universal translator? That is not a real serial number, so minus 1 more point. Kirk is lying here. Not only does Spock just tell him that, he is a captain of a spaceship. He should know a little bit about the history of Earth aircraft. Of course, Captain Christopher wants to know what's going on, but Kirk politely blows him off. That's exactly what I was thinking myself. Now, Spock calls and says the jet has disintegrated and asks if he should turn off the tractor beam. Seriously? But what about those 2 flights of fighter jets that were just 2 minutes behind Captain Christopher? So minus 1 point for forgetting about those jets. Captain Christopher is either a player or is having marital problems. Was the Air Force in the 1960s that segregated? He acts like he's never seen a woman before, a lot like Charlie X. Let's see now. The ship is thrown 300 years back in time, and they need to stay as incognito as possible. So I guess it would be best to keep Captain Christopher in the dark about a few things, such as how many ships they have, where they're from, how they got there. So Kirk loses a point for breaking the Temporal Prime Directive. He should know better. The United Earth Space Probe Agency is the parent company of Starfleet, but they veered away from that term early on. And now Kirk takes him onto the bridge and says to look around. Again, bad idea. But of course, Captain Christopher only wants to check out the girls on the bridge. Spock does look a little concerned about the situation. Spock is concerned the captain might overhear their conversation, so they walk 2 feet away. Spock predicts disaster if they let him return. This is foreshadowing the episode City on the Edge of Forever. But Captain Christopher is only concerned about the ladies. Another point is lost since they put him in a Starfleet uniform. Captain Christopher is not in Starfleet, he is in the Air Force. And as their guest, he is off duty, so he should be in civilian attire only. So unfortunately, this is the only episode where the computer has a sense of humor. But this is the first time a female-dominated planet is mentioned. Here's where he gets the bad news, but it doesn't help him telling them it's his job to report what he's seen. And Spock is no help saying he made no contribution in history. That's kind of rude. Obviously, he never watched It's a Wonderful Life. Scotty points out they have nowhere to go in this time period, and it looks like Jim Kirk is going to cry. And Captain Christopher likes to rub that in. And this is the last we hear of the affectionate computer, which is too bad, it was very humorous. This next scene is simply the fight scene to boost ratings scene, so we will skip over it right to sickbay. Shouldn't he be as healthy as a Rigelian ox? Bones is also concerned that they might not be able to go back, and insults the captain again, just like Spock did. Here is the required jab that Bone makes at Spock. He has to make one every episode. Spock discovers the reason why they need to return him back to Earth. Now they have to repair the ship, steal the negatives, go back in time, and return Captain Christopher. That's what they have to do. Of course, they forgot the 2 flights of jets right behind them, who are also taking photos, and they might have even gotten closer. I already took 1 point away since they forgot the jets, so this next point will be taken since they forgot the photos they took. Spock's explanation of how to go back in time is no help at all. Can anyone tell me what a sundog is? And minus 1 more point, that is not the way you wear a beret. And another point is lost here. Captain Christopher just gave them a diagram of the base so they can sneak in. But instead of sneaking into a small corner, they beam into the hallway where anyone can see them. Plus, they could have also scanned the base from orbit for a better place to beam in. So I'll have to take a point here. Oh look, the door is locked. If they planned ahead a little bit, they could have beamed in on the other side. And now there is an open door that might have set off an alarm. What on earth is that? They are just as puzzled about it as I am. This will take forever to download, assuming they installed all the Apple updates on time. While Spock and McCoy wait, it gives them a chance to bicker. It's in their contract, they have to bicker at least once each episode. The guard with the hideous hat returns. Kirk and Sulu must not be good at a quick draw. They give up way too easy. Spock decides to check in with Kirk. Standard protocol. And here, the guard, Kirk, and Sulu practice their comedy routine. Here we learn the emergency signal means to beam that person up immediately, not to send help down. Beaming the guard up does get Kirk and Sulu out of danger, but Kirk's like, there goes another one. Just like Mary Poppins when the second kid got sucked up the chimney. One more point is lost here since the dark room isn't locked. It does set off an alarm, but there is very poor security here for film taken from a fighter jet that was just crushed by a UFO, and the pilot is still missing. The door should have been locked and a developing crew should have been present. The purpose of this fight is to boost ratings and make the network happy. It is conceivable though for Kirk to cause this skirmish so Sulu will have more time. But in reality, these security guards suck. It shouldn't take 3 of them this long. This little fight also shows that William Shatner is good at doing his own stunts. And the skirmish worked, Sulu is safe on the Enterprise now. This gives Kirk more time to practice his facial expressions. Spock is concerned about technology, while McCoy explains, mainly to the audience, the limitations of their current technology. This is what made the original series so good. Not everything happened there by magic. So this comedy sketch doesn't hold up too well with time, but instead of ripping it apart joke by joke, I will simply take 1 point for Kirk looking at the camera. Captain Christopher states the obvious. This is Spock's way of saying, no shit. And another point is lost here since they ask Captain Christopher where Kirk is, when there is a guard who works in the same building standing right next to them. They could have shown him a map of the base and he would have been able to point right to it. The Enterprise is sophisticated enough to take a picture of the base. And then they wouldn't have to worry about Captain Christopher being such an ass. Commander Kyle is asleep at his post. Captain Christopher does the Picard maneuver. Why does Sulu do a karate chop when they have phasers on heavy stun? And why do they work so well in Star Trek? Not only does Spock lie to Kirk saying it was necessary to bring Captain Christopher along, he said he didn't trust the captain to begin with. And neither of them took the gun from the guard, and now Captain Christopher has the gun. So -1 point for not watching someone they don't trust. And how did Spock go from this office back to the hallway? So -1 point for no explanation of this magic trick. Spock and Scotty decide that another slingshot around the sun will put them back at the right time. And by beaming the two guests down during the time warp, everything will magically fit back into place. Get ready to rack up these points. This is an excellent rare shot of the Enterprise breaking orbit. I wish they'd do these more. But what planet is this? The warp speeds they mentioned would fly them past our sun in less than a second, so -1 point there. This will take precision timing, so 1 point is lost for Christopher being on the bridge and not in the transporter room where he should be. Then he tells Christopher to take the turbo lift right when the Enterprise is being thrown around, so another point is lost here. This puts him in a dangerous situation. Here is where we learn that a spaceship traveling at 500 times the speed of light, breaking free of the sun's gravity and slingshotting into a time warp, looks just like a Christmas ornament hanging from a thread. While Kirk and Sulu steer the ship by leaning into the curves, Spock suffers a severe bout of constipation and is knocked unconscious. The crew is successful and the Enterprise heads back forwards in time, but a point will have to be taken here, since if you slingshot around the sun, you would start at an extremely high rate of speed first, not gain speed as you travel farther away from the sun like they're doing. Kirk loses a point for talking to Captain Christopher one last time when he should be on the transporter pad because they need split-second precision to make this thing work. He must have a man crush on him or something. But according to Spock, everything is A-OK. But why is he saying it will be close when he has 20 minutes to spare? The suspense of this countdown is killing me. And when it comes down to it, the philosophy of beaming him back to where he was so he will forget everything would never work. Assuming it would be possible to use a transporter while you're in a time warp, they just beamed a person into another person. Both bodies should explode, so -1 point for not really thinking this through. And what about the 2 flights of jets right behind him tracking this? And -1 more point here, since they do it again. And if the timing needs to be so accurate, why is Spock making the calls from the bridge? This will take up too much time. And their comments on maneuvering through this time warp are a little odd, but I have never been through a time warp, so can't say anything here. But if the readings are off the scale, they would have been past Pluto in about 2 seconds. I can't come up with a good comment for this one. This time, Kirk doesn't want to hear Spock's countdown. Spock looks a little insulted by that. The biggest problem of going through a time warp is that it makes you all let out really big farts. But they are successful and make it back to the right time period. There is no evidence on if they are a week ahead or behind, but they made it back safely and that's all that matters. He says the Enterprise is home, but did Starfleet even know the Enterprise was missing? We will never know. They made it back safely, but really left a mess on Earth of the 1960s. They plunged through the Earth's atmosphere for all the world to see, crushed a fighter jet in a tractor beam, and kidnapped the pilot, forgetting there were still 2 flights of jets filming this, invaded a top-secret Air Force facility to steal the film of only the first jet and not the others, kidnapped 1 security guard and assaulted 6 others, coordinated an illegal breakout of a detained invader of their secure Air Force facility, and then exploded the pilot and security guard with a transporter, since that stunt would have killed them both, leaving the coroner to wonder why these 2 bodies they found have twice as much body mass. And since that would have killed Captain Christopher, his future son probably wasn't his real son after all. But this was in 1960s TV, so the real story had to be covered up and hidden in Area 51. Now, who joined the Enterprise in this time travel fiasco? Roger Perry recently left us. He has 100 credits to his name, including The Thing with Two Heads. Richard Merrifield kept the skies safe from alien attack and was also a doctor on Mission Impossible. Mark Dempsey may be an Air Force captain here, but he was also in O Calcutta, but of course I can't show any of those photos. Ed Peck has been on pretty much everything, including a recurring role on Happy Days. And Hal Lynch, the Air Force security guard, was actually in the Navy at one time, and played a POW on Hogan's Heroes. Unfortunately, 20 veterans a day in the US commit suicide, and in 2006, Hal Lynch joined that number. Time travel can cause a lot of errors in history, which is why they aren't supposed to do it. Look at all of these. But Tomorrow is Yesterday comes through with a score of 75%. So what is a black hole? Simple definition is a star that has collapsed in on itself and gravity is so strong that not even light can escape. Kirk called it a black star in 1966. Isn't that term more accurate? Look what happened in the 1970s. In the movie The Black Hole, it turned into something completely different, and even Voyager 6 fell through a similar black hole and came back as V'ger in the first Star Trek movie. Which term do you think is more accurate? Leave your comments below, and remember to click that like button, the share button, and that subscribe button, and I will see you again soon.